Welcome to the Live Free, Love Life podcast, where we discuss how to create more freedom so we can love our lives no matter what we're going through. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to today's episode of the Live Free, Love Life podcast. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where anger seems to just take over, leaving you feeling out of control and frustrated? Maybe it's a disagreement with your spouse that spirals into a shouting match, or perhaps it's the simmering resentment you feel towards your stepchild or your child for not respecting your rules. Whatever the case, anger can be an overwhelming emotion that often leaves us feeling worse than before. But what if I told you that your anger might not be what it seems? What if beneath that fiery surface, there is something else waiting to be acknowledged? Today, we're going to dive deep into the world of anger and uncover the hidden emotions that often fuel it. We will explore how embracing sadness and fear, emotions we often try to avoid, can actually be the key to breaking free from anger's grip and finding true emotional freedom. So let's start with the truth bomb. Anger is often a cover-up emotion. It's like the tough guy at the bar who's actually terrified of intimacy. Anger puffs up his chest and makes a lot of noise, but underneath, there's usually something much more vulnerable going on. So think about the last time you felt really angry. Maybe your partner forgot an important date, or your kid left their room a mess for the millionth time. In that moment, anger felt justified, right? It felt powerful. But if we peel back the layers, we often find that what's really driving that anger is sadness or fear. Dr. Stephen Sosny, a renowned anger management specialist, puts it this way. Anger is often a response to feeling vulnerable. It's a way of reasserting control when we feel helpless or afraid. This makes so much sense when we think about it. Anger feels strong and in control, while sadness and fear can make us feel weak and powerless. So our brains, in their infinite wisdom and sometimes misguided attempts to protect us, opt for anger as a default response. So let's talk about these two emotions that we often try to avoid like the plague: sadness and fear. Sadness is that heavy feeling in your chest when something doesn't meet your expectations or when you experience loss. It is the emotion that makes you want to curl up under the covers and hide from the world. Fear, on the other hand, is that tight knot in your stomach when you're faced with uncertainty or potential danger. It's the emotion that makes you want to run away or freeze in place. Both of these emotions can feel incredibly uncomfortable. They make us feel vulnerable, exposed, and yes, powerless. And let's be real, who likes feeling powerless? Not me, and I'm guessing not you either. But here's the kicker. By avoiding these emotions and choosing anger instead as the cover up, we're actually giving away our power. We are letting our subconscious fears and unacknowledged sadness drive our behavior instead of consciously choosing how we want to respond to life's challenges. When we choose anger over acknowledging our true feelings, we're essentially arguing with reality. And as Byron Katie so brilliantly puts it, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. So let's think about this. When you're angry that your partner forgot your anniversary, you're arguing with the reality that they forgot. When you're furious that your stepchild broke a house rule, you're arguing with the reality that they made that choice. And in both scenarios, you're arguing with the reality of what you really feel. Anger tells us that things should be different than they are. But here's the truth. Things are exactly as they are in this moment. Wishing they were different or raging against the fact that they're not doesn't change the current reality. It just keeps us stuck in a cycle of frustration and pain. So, how do we break free from this cycle? The answer might surprise you. We need to lean into the very emotions we've been trying to avoid. By acknowledging and embracing our sadness and fear, we open the door to true emotional freedom. Here's why. Number one, authenticity. When we allow ourselves to feel sad or afraid, we're being honest with ourselves. We're acknowledging our true experience rather than covering it up with anger. Number two, vulnerability. Embracing these emotions requires vulnerability, which is actually a sign of strength, not weakness. As Brene Brown says, Vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Number 3, connection. Sadness and fear are universal human experiences. When we allow ourselves to feel and express these emotions, we open the door to deeper connections with others who have felt the same way. Number 4, growth. Working through our sadness and fear, rather than avoiding them, allows us to grow and evolve. We learn valuable lessons about ourselves and develop greater emotional resilience. Number 5, empowerment. By consciously choosing to face our true emotions, we take back our power. We are no longer at the mercy of unconscious reactions, but can make deliberate choices about how we want to respond to life's challenges. Okay, so before we dive into the practical steps, let's take a moment to address something important. When we talk about anger, sadness, and fear, we're really referring to families of emotions. Think of these three as the patriarchs or matriarchs of entire emotional clans. So the anger family includes, among others, frustration, annoyance, irritation, resentment, rage. The sadness family includes, among others, hurt, disappointment, discouragement, loneliness, grief. And the fear family includes, again, among others, anxiety, worry, stress, nervousness, insecurity, and dread. While it is helpful to recognize these nuanced emotions, we can still use our simplified process focusing on the three core emotions of anger, sadness, and fear. Why? Because simplicity brings freedom. When you are feeling frustrated with your partner, annoyed at your kids, or irritated with your coworker, you can still ask yourself, what's underneath this? What am I sad about? What am I afraid of? Similarly, if you ask what's underneath and the answer is, I'm feeling hurt, you know you're on the right track because hurt is part of the sadness family. By grouping these emotions into three main families, we give ourselves a simple, practical framework to work with. It's like having three main buckets to sort our emotional experiences into, rather than trying to juggle dozens of different categories. This simplicity is freeing because, number one, it's easy to remember. It's always sadness or fear. Number two, it makes the process more manageable. Instead of getting caught up trying to pinpoint the exact shade of emotion you're feeling, you can focus on the core experience. Number three, it helps you identify patterns more easily. You might start to notice that certain situations always trigger emotions from the anger family, for instance. And number four, it provides a clear path forward. Remember, the goal is not to become an emotion naming champion, although this does have its place. The goal is to develop a greater awareness of your emotional experiences and to learn to embrace the more vulnerable emotions that often hide behind anger. So, as we move forward, keep in mind that whenever you encounter any emotion that feels like it's in the neighborhood of anger, you can apply this process. Whether you're feeling mildly annoyed or full on enraged, subtly disappointed or deeply grieving, slightly nervous or absolutely terrified. This framework is here to help you navigate your emotional world with greater ease and understanding. So now let's look at how to put this into practice. Here are some practical steps you can take to start embracing sadness and fear. Number one, practice emotional awareness. Start paying attention to your emotions. When you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself, what's really going on here? Am I actually sad about something? Am I afraid? Number two, name it to tame it. Once you have identified the underlying emotion, name it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling sad right now, or I'm experiencing fear. This simple act of naming our emotions can help reduce their intensity. Number three, get curious. Instead of judging your emotions or trying to push them away, get curious about them. Ask yourself, what is this sadness trying to tell me? What am I afraid of in this situation? Number four, feel it to heal it. Allow yourself to fully feel the emotion. This might mean having a good cry if you're sad or taking some deep breaths if you're afraid. Remember, emotions are like waves. They will pass if we let them. Number five, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself as you navigate these emotions. Treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend who was struggling. Number 6, communicate. Once you've identified and processed your true emotions, communicate them to others if appropriate. For example, instead of yelling at your partner for forgetting an important date, you might say, I feel sad about you forgetting this because it's important to me, and I make that mean that I'm not important to you. Number 7, seek support. If you find it challenging to navigate these emotions on your own, don't hesitate to seek support. This could be from a trusted friend, a therapist, or a coach. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Let's look at how this might play out in a real life situation. Imagine you're a stepmom and your stepchild consistently ignores the house rules that you have set. Your initial reaction might be anger. You might find yourself thinking, they're so disrespectful. They never listen to me. But if we pause and we dig deeper, we might find that underneath that anger is fear. Perhaps you're afraid that you will never have a good relationship with your stepchild, or that your partner will always side with them over you. There might also be sadness that things aren't going the way that you hoped they would in your blended family. By acknowledging these underlying emotions, you open up new possibilities. Instead of reacting in anger, you might have a vulnerable conversation with your partner about your fears and your sadness. This could lead to problem solving and greater understanding rather than conflict and resentment. When we learn to embrace our sadness and fear, we find a kind of freedom that anger could never provide. We become more authentic, more connected to ourselves and to others, and more capable of navigating life's challenges with grace and resilience. As Pema Chodron beautifully puts it, fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. By facing our fears and sadness, we move closer to our truth. And in doing so, we find our power. Remember, this is a journey. It takes time and practice to shift our relationship with our emotions. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and know that each time you choose to embrace sadness or fear instead of defaulting to anger, you are taking a step forward toward true emotional freedom. So before we wrap up, take a moment to reflect on these questions. Think about a recent situation where you felt angry. Can you identify any underlying sadness or fear in that situation? How might your relationships change if you started expressing your true emotions instead of defaulting to anger? What's one small step you can take this week to practice embracing sadness or fear when they arise? Breaking free from anger by embracing sadness and fear is a powerful journey of self-discovery and growth. It's not always easy, but the freedom and authenticity on the other side are well worth the effort. Remember, you have the power to choose how you respond to life's challenges. By facing your true emotions head on, you open the door to deeper connections, greater self-understanding, and a life lived on your own terms. So the next time you feel anger bubbling up, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's really going on here? You might be surprised by what you discover and by the freedom that comes from embracing your true feelings. Live free, love life. Thank you for watching this episode of Live Free, Love Life. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, comment, and share. See you next time.